Hello and welcome to Gate TV for the latest episode in our special series of Unlocking the Gate, where we get to sit down with some true Margate legends to celebrate our 125th birthday. We are here at Hartsdown Park and I am delighted to be joined by David Yorath. David, thank you so much for coming down to visit the club. How does it feel to be back here?
I love the place. I love the place. I fell in love with it when I first came here. I was at Crystal Palace at the time, and I remember coming up those steps because we had dressing rooms underneath at the time. Came up the steps, it was a boiling hot day and the sun was shining, and I thought, oh, I like this place. And they've been back ever since.
Yeah, it was a real love affair for you.
It was right from the very off.
And as a footballer, it must be quite a special feeling to know and feel that sense of this is somewhere where I think something special can happen.
Well, I've just been through a bad experience at Crystal Palace, and I hated London. I just, although I come from a city myself, I just couldn't get to grips with London. So I wanted to go home. That was my intention when Alma came down to see me play, and he said, "Why don't you come to Margate?" And I thought, oh, I want to go home, I'm homesick. But I thought, he offered me and David Houston, who was my best mate, who both come from Cardiff to Crystal Palace. He offered us both, so I'll never forget, we got to Victoria, and I said to him, how far up north is this? And he said, it's not north, it's down on the east coast. I said, oh, no. So we caught the train and we came down. We went to the Thanet restaurant, which is just around from the corner of the clock tower. We had a meal there with Alma and Sonny Miles, who was the chairman. And he took us back to Sonny's house. We talked terms and came back to the ground, came up those steps, and that was it for me.
That was it?
That was it.
That was the start of a new chapter?
Well, it's been what, 50 years now. You know, and I've seen every aspect of it. It was just such a friendly, homely club. You know, everybody. The funny part about that was that they had houses then. They had 6 houses, and most of the players lived here. You know, so we trained together here at Hartsdown. We played together. We went out together. You know, it was a social club. You never sort of got in your car straight after the game and went home. You stayed in the clubhouse, you know, you talked to the supporters, even if you'd had a bad game, and you got some stick if you had a bad game.
Sure.
You did. Oh, but you put up with it and you got on with the next one, you know. You couldn't just walk away. Then you go out in the town in the week and they'd still be talking about you. Oh, it was, I fell in love with it. Alma Hall was brilliant.
Oh, it's so fantastic to hear, and we'll talk about your career and the life you've made here in Margate in a bit more detail. But let's take it back to the very start. You mentioned your hometown in Cardiff. That's where you started your career as a Welsh schoolboy international. How did the passion of playing football kind of start for you?
When I was at school, I played for Rita Penna School, got into the Cardiff boys side, kept John Toshak out of the side.
There we go.
There you go. And then I went on to leave there and go to Hale here, which is a Welsh school. And I played football there. Me and Terry scored 53 goals between us at Rita Penna in a season, which was good those days. And then he went off to Cathays to play rugby. I went to Hale here, played football. I went on then to play for Cardiff schoolboys. We got to the final of the English School Shield, which was something in those days because there were some good teams from London and that. We beat South London in the semi-finals. Went on then to have Welsh trials, played for Wales. We played Ireland, Scotland, England at Wembley. So that was fantastic. I stood in the tunnel at Wembley and they just built the roof and they were chanting, England, England. My little legs were going, my knees, they were like jelly. But we went on from there. Then I had I had offers from Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, Leeds, and I was a homeboy. So I chose to stay at Cardiff City, much to my regret. And then I went from there. I made my debut at 17 against West Ham. Bobby Moore, Jeff Hurst, Sissons, all of those were playing. They murdered us in the semi-final of the, well, it's the Football League Cup now, isn't it? All the cup.
There's so many names. I think it tends to be whoever's sponsoring it on that occasion.
Yeah.
But I mean, making that debut at 17 against those names, that must have been.
Well, I was starstruck. I'll never forget, after the game, nobody, it wasn't like today. Today, if you're 20, 23, you're still at the club. You know, you're still part of the club, even if you haven't played for the first team. But then, you come into the dressing room, you got changed, no one spoke to you, no one said, oh, you didn't do this right, or you didn't do that right. You just come in, and I remember going outside after the game, I was on my own, 17, and I stood at the bus stop waiting for a bus. And I was the only person there, 10 o'clock at night, and I stood at the bus stop. And I thought, even now when I go back to Cardiff, I take my daughter and my son, and we drive down there, down to the bay, and down Cardiff City's ground. And I say, see that bus stop over there? That's where I stood on my own after the game. Imagine that happening today.
Debut. Absolutely.
Imagine that happening today.
And it's so interesting because even in our conversation already, there's threads of the game that's evolved and gone in one direction, but that's so interesting here as a young player. Nowadays are given so much coaching, support and advice. You've just played in your professional debut against some of the biggest names, and then you have to kind of mull it over in your own head how you got on.
Stood at the bus stop, nobody there, pitch black, called the number 37 to Lisbane, and got off at the other end. Went to bed. Nothing.
Absolutely incredible. And was playing in those kind of occasions and in those sort of tournaments how the sort of English football scouts saw you, and then what did in the end entice you to make that move from your hometown club to Crystal Palace?
Well, yeah, this is another thing. Dave Houston, who I was playing with, he made 17 appearances for the first team that season and got given a free transfer. Now, he was 16. Now you imagine somebody at 16 today making 17 appearances for the first, he'd be a star.
Yeah.
You know, his route would be mapped out.
Tied up to a long-term contract probably?
Yeah, 5-year contract, 4-year contract like they get today. Not then. Free transfer. Didn't even speak to you. Free transfer. Off you go. So me and Dave, we went to Crystal Palace. We went up there. Bert Head was the manager then. Oh, I'll never forget. He always used to have a bit of straw in his mouth. Talk like a... He says, I rescued you. I thought, yeah, you didn't. I hated every minute of Crystal Palace. I hated it. I asked him at Christmas if I could go home. I said, I want to go home for Christmas. He said, no, I might need you for the first team. I said, you won't need me for the first team, you know that. He said, yeah, but I might. So he said, you're not going. So I thought, went up to the bank, threw my money out, went home. February, I was still home, and I got a phone call asking me to go to Bristol City to play for them because there was snow on the ground and they couldn't get enough players there. The next morning he got called off, so he asked me if I'd go back. So I went back, we had a trial match that day, and that was when Alma Hall was there. And he said, will you come to Margate?
So David, you won so many trophies, so many highlights during your career here at Hartsdown Park. What are the most memorable and the ones that you're most proud of?
I think the Kent Cup we won against Ramsgate. We played them twice, we drew here, and then we beat them over at Ramsgate, which was like 3,000 or 4,000 there, you know, which you don't get today, do you? I mean, we played Telford in the last game of the season, and we'd been unbeaten at home. And they had league players coming out of their years. They paid 8,000 for one player in those days in the Southern League. And we played them here, we beat them 1-0 to keep our record, and we hadn't been beaten all season at Hartsdown. That was fantastic. Then the other end of the scale was when we went to Telford again, and we needed to win to stay up. And Tommy Marshall scored a goal playing centre forward, and we won 1-0. And we stayed up by something like a 64th of a goal, you know? And the directors went potty. They always gave us dinner money when we were playing away. You had, I don't know how much it was, £3 or something, and you bought a sandwich or, meal. They'd given us our dinner money. And then when we come into the dressing room, and the Alan Kay was secretary then, what a gentleman. And he decided that, it's Brian, he decided that what he'd do, they'd give us a meal on the tray on the arm. So they bought a steak.
Oh, well, you deserved it by the sounds of it.
They bought a steak
dinner after staying up.
It was fantastic. it was really, I mean, the atmosphere and everything, it was fantastic. We were so close to each other. It was Sunday morning, we all used to meet on the boulders in Cliftonville, and there'd be 15 to 20 blokes all sitting around the table on a Sunday lunchtime, supporters as well.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of club it was. It was, everybody knew everybody, and it was great.
There was obviously a real camaraderie and team spirit during your time. But on a personal level, in terms of individual moments for you as a player, are there any that stand out?
I loved it that much. I think they all stood out. I just loved going out there. You can ask Brian, you can ask anyone. If you got left out, you didn't want to. You played 60, 70 games. They talk about being tired today. We have to do a job and then play in the night in there. And if you got left out, you say to Amos, why am I left out? Oh, you looked a bit tired. I'm not tired. And you go mad. You just wanted to play football. And that's what we came to play football. We loved it.
Yeah, it was clearly like a passion and just a hobby as well as something that was extraordinarily competitive and focused.
Oh, it was competitive. It was competitive. I remember my first game against Ramsgate. There was a lad called Danny Laker playing for them. And someone said to me, you better watch him today, son. I said, why? He said, oh, he can catch pigeons. I said, what? He said, he's as fast as hell. I thought, well, I'm not having that. So the first tackle up by the halfway line, I went smack. He went up in the air, he come down, he looked at me, he went, he started wandering off. Never saw him again.
I love that, you dealt with that one.
Well, I wasn't even going to take the mick out of me all afternoon.
So if you had to describe your style as a player then, what would you like to be remembered as, the kind of player that you were for Margate?
I'd like to be remembered as the first attacking fullback.
Attacking fullback?
Yeah. I always used to get down the wing, and Bob Harrop said, remember you're a defender, remember you're a defender. I was gone. But I think I'd like to play on these pitches. The pitches we played on, they were that thick in mud, and you had to plough through them. I mean, every one of these players that I played with could play on there and put up a good show. If you can't pass on that pitch, you can't pass on any pitch. Gee, look at it. It's as flat as a pancake.
It is beautiful. And it's made for the modern day fullback now, so you were just rewriting the rules. You were ahead of your time, clearly.
Well, that was Alma Hall. He used to say, I don't want to win 1-0. I don't want to win 2-1. He said, I want to score 5 goals. He said, so when you get down that end, he said, make sure that ball flashes past the post. That's what the supporters want to see.
Yeah.
And that's how we played. That's how we played. We were lucky. We had a great centre half, Bob Harrop. I mean, he was a gentle giant, he was. You could ooze the class out of him. You could tell he came from Manchester United. He wasn't a centre half that picked up the ball and went 50 yards, 60 yards, and he passed it out. That's how he played. I've never seen him get beat. I never saw anyone take the mickey out of him.
Am I right in thinking that you were Margate's penalty taker for a number of years as well? And it also gets me when we held the Legends Day here, that you were in discussion with Brian Hughes because Brian had saved a penalty when he moved on to play for...
He's a cheat.
Tell us more about that.
Brian was a great lad. And nicest of nice. You know, that was his trouble, Brian. He was too nice. But I've been taking penalties, and my dad always said to me, he said, any professional footballer that misses a penalty shouldn't play football, shouldn't be paid. I thought, oh dear. So anyway, I've been lucky. I think I've missed one. I don't know whether I did, but I think I missed one. And then we go to Gravesend, and Brian's playing in goal, isn't he? Now, I was lucky in that I could put the ball either side. But I don't know why. I kept looking at him and I thought, he knows I'm going to go to the right here. And I changed my mind. And he caught it. And I looked at him and he went, I thought you've been standing down that end all these years watching me take penalties and you saved it. I can't believe it. And that's what we were talking about.
Even all these years afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
And also reading back on your career, what was interesting to learn is that you were utilised in a number of different roles by managers. Was versatility a part of your game as well?
Well, I started off as a midfield player. Then they changed me to a right back. And then I played midfield again. It was, I think if you can play anywhere, can't you? You know, I always thought, well, you know, I could play centre forward. I don't think I could, but you always thought that, you know. And I was never quick enough to play winger, that's for sure. But, you know, I think when you're brought up with football, you know, it's like, I used to take my son out to the back garden, and we used to have goalposts in the backyard. And he used to say, Joe, can we play kick-ins? Like, you know, you go in goal now. No, I wouldn't let him. And he said, why? I said, you do what I want to do first, and then we play kick-ins. So he said, yeah, all right. So I used to pick up the ball, and I just used to throw it at him. And I said, when you can stop that ball dead or control it, then we play kick-ins. And that's all I used to do for half hour. And in the end, he had a touch like, you know, which if you look at the Italians, the Spaniards, any of those, that's their forte. You know, they can control the ball, and that's half the battle. Which, thankfully, getting into English and Welsh football now, that's happening. Yeah, you know, indeed. And it's about time.
You mentioned a few names already, but were there any teammates that became lifelong friends?
Oh, Dave Houston. I still see Dave now. Still have Christmas cards from him. Still send him Christmas cards. We went from Cardiff together, as I said. He was 16. He was still in school when he joined Cardiff from Glasgow. They paid for him to go to school. Great player. He came down here. We played West Ham. He scored 5 goals. He'd never played centre forward before in his life, but he was a midfield player, and we used to take the mick out of him because he was a big lad. He was a big lad. And when we were at Crystal Palace, they used to buy presents. You know, at Christmas they'd buy you presents, and they'd buy you funny presents, like, you know, now Hoosty, because he was big and he was round-shouldered and everything, they used to call him an elephant. So they bought him an elephant for Christmas, you know. And me, they bought me a pair of glasses without any glass in, you know, and things like that. They were fun times, you know.
Yeah.
But he'd be my best friend.
Oh, that's lovely. And in terms of influences on your career, because there were not really agents like you see them now, coaching was very different. Was there a manager or coach who you look back on and think, or feel a degree of gratitude for helping you?
If I'm honest, no. I go back to say my school teachers were the best, because when it came to, as I said to you, when I made my debut and I came off the pitch, no one spoke to me. In those days, they didn't speak to you. They didn't, you know, it wasn't the, oh, put your hand on your shoulder, son, you had it tough tonight, you know, that you should have done that, or you should have. Even when you went in the next morning for training, they didn't explain to you, today it must be lovely. You know, they go in today and they say, come on, we're going to take you outside and we're going to show you a video, or we're going to show you. We never had any of that.
No, the technology and stuff.
We never had any of that, you know. It was, how can I put it? It was a laddish thing, I think. You know, you come out of the dressing room there, you go in the bar there, you drink 4 pints, 5 pints of beer. They don't do that today. You know, which I'm glad of. You know, but it's not the same today as what it was then.
And you came back for a second spell at the club in around about 1980. Was that due to kind of a shortage of players? Were you there to kind of help out? What was that period like?
It wasn't very good, actually. It was, the club was struggling. You know, Alma Hall had gone, Les Riggs had gone, then you had Sonny Miles had gone, Alan Kay, Bob Griffiths, all these businessmen from around this area had all gone. And we were left with nothing, really. We had a stint with John Wickens, who was a player here at the time, and John put his own money into the club, you know, which he couldn't afford to do, really. And he was a lovely man, John. You know, he's always laughing, always. But you can't do that if you're going to stay in this type of football. And unfortunately, the club had gone down. And when Alma Hall was here, if we had under 2,000 people at this ground, there's a board meeting, and they want to know why. You know, there was always anything from 1,500 to 2,200, you know, at the ground, and that was in the week as well. You know, but it just wasn't seen. They're getting crowds of 500, and you know, and the most horrible thing about it was that the houses were sold. Of course, then you couldn't draw the players.
No.
So what if you think about it realistically, when you're like Jay now, you know, he's got to go and look for good players. Now this is the end of the earth.
Yeah,
Really, there's only one road in and one road out. You know, well, if you think about it, when we all came from league clubs to you, that was great.
Nice.
Now, you tell me they want 500, 600 quid a week. You know, if they're that good, why aren't they going to teams in London? If they're that good that they can earn £600 a week or £500 a week, London clubs would be picking them up. You know,
it's the challenges, definitely,
you know,
for modern
in the same
management.
league. But they still want the 500 and 600, but they're not that good. You know, so you're getting the drabs, and that's not right.
And your last appearance for the football club came 13 years after your first. Margate must just be a very special club to you when you've spent so long.
It is. I just wish that there was more communication and more back to the love that was there then. You know, I wouldn't know who's director now, I wouldn't know who's running the club. But we still come here and still watch it, and the first thing I do is look up the group thing on the Facebook, you know, and I look for the results on a Sunday morning in the paper, and you know, it'll never go out of your body. It'll never ever. It's Margate Football Club.
And we would never want it to leave that way either.
It wouldn't. I mean, my son was there. You know, he played. We used to come and watch that, and he was like, you know, I think he could have made it, but he had a bad injury. Played for the first team. You know, which I was so proud of. It was untrue. You know, but he came to me one day and he said, I don't want to play anymore. He went to Chelsea. He was at Chelsea Academy with John Terry. You know, so he could play, but if you don't want to play, and now he's the director of a accountancy firm in Tunbridge Wells, so you know, he's done well in his own right. So, and I appreciate that. I said to him when he came to me and said, I don't want to play anymore, I said, well, you do what you want to do. You know, you don't have to be a footballer just because me and your uncle were footballers. You know, that's life, isn't it? But he still loves Margate. He still comes, you know. It's in our blood, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's lovely to hear that. It must have been such a proud moment for you when your son did play. And briefly, I just want to touch upon, you are so clearly passionate about football and Margate, and you did do a little bit of coaching and management. What was that like?
I now look back and wish. See, we didn't have the coaching badges and the you could go away on a coaching course or anything like that. You just had to pick up your own things, and I wish now I'd gone into it. I'd love to have done it, especially when I was younger. I'd have loved to have done it. I think there's nothing. It's easy to stand on here and criticise someone, isn't it? You know, I took Sunday football. We were the most successful side around. We won. We had a manager called Kevin Gildert, and he won 2 back-to-back Kent Senior Cup, things which no one's ever done. You know, so we were the most successful side around here. And I was passionate about that. You know, at the time I had pubs in the town, so you can imagine the rivalry when, you know, we played someone. They come in the night before and they were all, yeah, we'll beat you tomorrow. Yeah, a few beers later, yeah. But those were, you know, I was still passionate then. I still wanted us to win. Oh, there was no one going to beat us, you know. And it's lovely. I think football is. It should be. Coming here today and seeing that, I love that. I love that. When my brother left here, when he was manager here, they didn't do very well. They were near the bottom. But I looked back the other day at the last team that he managed here, and they had 6 local players in the team. You know, and we used to come up here every Sunday, every Tuesday, everywhere, and watch the kids play. And you know, I think it's marvellous. I think you know, that's where football should be. That's where it should come from. You know, get out there, get the youngsters playing, get them there, and let them play in the first team.
Yeah.
You know, get them through. Doesn't. I can't say it doesn't matter, but you know,
it's a key principle, isn't it?
If you get relegated one year and you've got 11 local players in that team, build on it and come back up again. You know, try and bring them. Try and encourage local people, you know, and local players. I think it's great. There's great players around here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing them kind of break into the first team now. You have the academy, and not just for the men's, but for the women's teams as well. And my final question to you, obviously, we're celebrating 125 years. We want to be here for the next 125 as well. What would your message to the club be upon this kind of anniversary season?
I think the club have got to get, you know, not people like yourself or people like Jay or people, but the directors and that have got to get involved with the community. You know, the community is the heart of the thing, and they've got to. I read so much from the supporters about, oh, we don't know what's going on, and we don't. You know, you can't do that. You've got, especially in places like this. It's all right for big clubs like Tottenham Hotspur or Leeds United. But in places like this, it's local community. You know, I want to walk through that gate, and I want a director to come up to me and say, "Oh, you're Dai Yorath, didn't you?" Like I can say to him, "I don't know directors." I'd like to say, "Oh, I'm glad what you're doing here. You're doing really well." You know, I hope we can do that again, because that's what it used to be. Everybody knew Sonny Miles. Sonny Miles was the heart and thing of this club. Alan Kay, secretary. You know, everybody knew him. I don't know anyone up there now. I've just met you, but I know Peter. Obviously, I've known Peter for like 40 years, but I don't know anyone else. You know.
Well, hopefully, it's an exciting new chapter with the stadium plans coming into life, new changing rooms and so on. And I really hope that you have enjoyed coming back to visit us and to share your stories with us.
And you've got a great young manager. I know Jay well. You know, he played with my boy. You know, so I know him. You know, and I think he's doing a great job. The trouble is, they've got to back him. You know, if they don't back him, then he's got no chance. He's fighting a losing battle.
It's a tough, ruthless division, and I think football always has been, hasn't it? And that's kind of clear from your time there to the modern day. It goes in massive cycles. But David, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Unlocking the Gate. Do make sure that you subscribe to Gate TV so you're the first to know when our latest episodes land.